Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Expedition. My name is Pavel. I'm a counselor and psychotherapist based in Ireland. And in this episode, I was interviewing Adlerian counselor Monica Jackman, who has over 30 years of experience. Monica shared with me how she works with people experiencing low self-esteem, anxiety, and grief, and also how she works with her clients through coaching with neuroscience. As always, if you can, hit the subscribe button and make sure you stay until the end of the episode. Monica, hello.
Hello, Pavel.
And this time I'm interested how you work with your clients. Who actually comes through the door for you? What do they bring?
Okay. So I have a wide range of clients. I have women, young men, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So I've older clients, 50s, 60s. I've had some clients in their 70s. So my clients tend to, because I suppose people know that I work a lot with anxiety. I have a lot of clients who come with anxiety, panic attacks, sometimes phobias, people who are struggling with maybe communicating what they want to say to other people who are struggling with confidence. I suppose that would be often maybe the younger people. Sometimes the older people are struggling with confidence. So anxiety would be a major issue that comes to my door. Over the years, I would have dealt with a lot of situations, bereavement, depression, relationships. I suppose everybody is dealing with relationship in one way or the other. I work with individuals on relationship issues, issues with family, siblings, parents, children, all the way around, I suppose. And it can be very difficult because you only have the one person in the room when you're dealing with relationships, but you do your best to work with the one person and see what they can do to, have a positive impact on the relationship or look after themselves in whatever way they need to look after themselves. So it's a very wide range. I would have dealt with people going through fertility issues and people who have bereavement, people who have lost people in recent times or maybe many years ago. And I suppose in the currently, the majority of my clients coming in, I see a huge increase in anxiety since COVID. I think everybody has seen that anxiety is at a different level than it used to be. And then with any of the clients that are coming in that are in their 20s, they were early 20s, they were teenagers, maybe going through the whole COVID situation. So a lot of people just don't feel, as safe as they used to feel before that. There's a big issue with phone use. I'd see that with all of my clients, no matter what age they are. People are using their phones an awful lot and they're worried about it, and they're comparing themselves to other people through their phone use and not feeling maybe right.
Monica, that's me.
Okay,
I'll be honest.
Right.
Yeah, I probably will give you a ring after this.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I will just say to you, what I say to everybody, try and curate your phone list. Go into who are you following? What are you following? Yeah. Are you following people that have the fabulous, brilliant, perfect life? You are? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're comparing to those and you know very well, you're only seeing the good side of their life. You're not seeing the reality of their lives. You're not seeing the ups and downs.
It feels so nice to see them, like having all these things and like.
But if it's making you feel good and you like it and it's entertainment value, there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, I laugh most of the time. Most of it is entertaining, like really kind of, and also wholesome in some way, I would say.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
But I still compare myself to them anyway.
Yeah, and that's the bit that comes in then when the comparing comes in. Then that's the tricky bit about it. So which is the greatest benefit? What is the cost higher than the benefit? There's a benefit of enjoyment, but if the cost of you feeling bad about yourself when you stop looking at that, that's it. I would do the cost benefit analysis on it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not worth it, and you're feeling, you know, kind of, oh, why couldn't I have that? Or, you know, am I not working hard enough? I don't have that life or whatever. I'm not saying that's that with you, but in general, that's what people say, you know, and somebody else did better than me, or people comparing themselves to people that they went to college with, or, you know, I hear that a lot, you know, how are they doing? It's not even the people with the huge, big, fancy lifestyles. It might be just somebody you went to school with or went to college with, that a person might say, look what they're doing and look what they have. Yeah. So I just, you know, if it's a temporary enjoyment and then you're left feeling worse afterwards, I would just say, is it worth it? Maybe not try and kind of go down through your list of followers, go down through what's coming into your feed, have a look at it and say, is that uplifting me in my day? Is that making me feel better? Or is there a downside to it? And just unfollow that. Those things aren't coming into your feed and there's other things coming in. And it's having a huge impact on people. And I mean, they do say, the science people, they say, whoever they are, but they say don't put it on for 20 minutes first thing in the morning. Oh yeah. And you know, and because you're getting the dopamine hits from the minute you wake up in the morning, and then you're kind of, it's harder depleted for the day. Yeah,
you don't have anything more to for the day, like
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I do it as well. You know, I have to hold my hand up. I do it as well. Now, not so much comparing myself, thankfully. I think I've reached a point where I don't compare myself as much as I used to. And they say it happens to you at a certain age. It didn't happen to me when I turned a certain age, but over time, as time has gone on. But I spent too much time on the phone. And sometimes it's research and sometimes it's just not.
Just scrolling.
Yes. That's it. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they call it doom scrolling because it is kind of, is there a doomy feeling or what from it? You know, it's not benefiting you in any way, us in any way. So that's, you know, it's kind of trying to keep up with the things that are, you know, things are changing all of the time. The challenges are changing all of the time, and trying to keep up with that, and kind of talking to somebody about their phone use, but not being a miserable person saying, oh, you shouldn't be on your phone. I mean, we're all on our phones. You know, it's just to try and cut it down. And I know a lot of my younger clients, you know, that have given up social media. Okay. They realised it was having a negative impact on them. So there's a lot they're still on it, but you know, a lot of people, you know, not just my clients, but in general, I think a lot of people are cutting down on it, and a lot of people are not. A lot of people are spending hours and hours every day on it. So that's having a big effect on mental health. Yeah. It really is, you know, and people don't realise that, because some people have grown up with mobile phones. Yeah. It's been always there for them. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they don't know life any differently.
And the people like you and I know what cassettes literally are when you have to record something.
Yeah. I know you were still a little bit kind of...
As per the last episode.
Yeah. You were still a little bit... A cassette tape, that you were still a little bit, but... Because, but... Absolutely, yeah, that's true. And I still have cassettes at home, and I still have the old cassette player, because so and that was our distraction, I suppose, when we were young, music and all of those things are still there, but the phone always has to come. And even, you know, for security, even so people know where you are, you know, we kind of have to bring our phones with us, you know, or if you get lost or you need something or you want to ring a taxi or whatever, you know, we need our phones, but it's just really trying to get to a manageable point where it's not taking over the whole day, and we're not, as you say, comparing ourselves to the people that are on there as much, to be conscious they're real people as well. They have to do all of the same things. They have to get up and have a shower in the morning, same as everybody else. They have to do their shopping and, you know, usually have the same problems. But when you see that and it's just coming constantly into your feed, it's hard, you know, to think of that. Just kind of look at all this good stuff. We all put our best foot forward on social media.
And as you listed the demographics of people who you see, has that shifted in maybe last decade or two?
It definitely has. There's definitely a lot more men, a lot more young men, a lot older men. And
why do you think it is?
I think men are becoming more aware that it's okay to talk about their feelings and that they have feelings. Mm-hmm. And I know that's been a bit, a bit judgmental in a way. Maybe not judgmental, but it seems that way, that a lot of men, it's not that they didn't think they had feelings, but they didn't think it was okay to have the feelings. So they would push them down and keep busy. And a lot of people still do that, men and women. And a lot of men, I think, keep busy. And exercise and the gym and all of that has been very common now, become very common for dealing with stress, which is all good if it's within, if it's a reasonable amount, if it's not taken over your life. I think that, just the knowledge, the awareness has come to men more. I mean, women always came, younger women, 20s, 30s, 40s, to have a lot of challenges with, with having maybe jobs, young children, a lot of working mothers, have a lot of guilt about being working mothers, but that's the world we live in now. People have to go out to work. But I think with men, they have just, the awareness has increased and changed, that it's okay to have feelings, and they have feelings. And a lot of the campaigns and the knowledge and the information that's come out about what has happened to a lot of men, mostly, with suicide rates and things like that, I think it has increased men's awareness a lot, that it is important to talk about stresses or strains. It doesn't have to be, when you think about talking about feelings, it doesn't have to be emotional, there doesn't have to be tears. It can be just, this is stressing me, this is a problem for me. And I think maybe people have become more aware of that. It's just a space to talk. It's just a person to listen and to support, and maybe give some, ideas or tips about self-care or something like that. And as well, when they find out they're not going to be told what to do, I think it becomes a bit easier in my experience. I think people sometimes think they're going to be told what to do when they come to counselling, and that's not the role of counselling. And some people want that and expect that. Okay. And they feel disappointed when you don't tell them what to do, and they kind of want the quick fix, or they think they're coming to a professional
who will tell them what to do. Yeah.
And I think, it's important to explain it's a process. It's not something that, there is no quick answer. It's something kind of we work out through the process. So I think people are happy when for those certain set of people, they're happy when they're told, when they realise they're not going to be told what to do. It's not about that. It's an exploring space to explore what are the options, what are the things that help you, who helps you, how can you help yourself, what's happened, just a space just to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And I think people relax then when they realise that, for most people. And then if that doesn't suit them, if that approach doesn't suit them, then I'm not for them. Maybe somebody else might be different that would suit them better. So it is important, if your first counsellor or second one doesn't feel right for you, I think it is important, don't give up on counselling or psychotherapy. Yes. You just haven't found the right match for yourself. Yeah.
How do you find maybe the developmental kind of stage for men in therapy? You said that they relax after a while.
I suppose they become more talkative, and they feel less vulnerable, that they're more comfortable with talking about their stresses or their worries, or that if they had issues from childhood. I mean, a lot of...
Which happens a lot.
It does, absolutely, yeah. Without going into anything confidential, I mean, bullying is a very common topic that comes up, pressure from parents to do well at school is a topic that comes up a lot, and expectations about how you are as a man in the world for men, that comes up a lot, that men believe they should be a certain way, or they should be strong, and so in that way it's kind of, saying to somebody, but you're human. I say that a lot. I hear myself saying that a lot, but you're human. You are a man, but you're human. That's okay to feel things, or to, you don't have to be strong or coping all of the time. And then a lot of men are tied up in their work as part of their identity.
Yeah.
And if their work isn't going well, or if they're out sick from work, and this can happen to women as well, that are, if they're out sick from work, that they feel they've let their team down, or they're not coping, and it's that kind of sense of guilt.
So the codependency on either how I am valuable to my coworkers, or how much they are kind of like struggling without me.
Yeah.
You know, is tied up to my identity then.
And it's just to try, I suppose, and work with somebody just to normalise getting sick. That it can happen to anybody at any time.
Taking holidays.
Yeah. Some people feel guilty about taking their holidays.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just try and work with somebody to say it's okay, you're human, and you know, you are important in work. It's not that you're completely indispensable, because you don't want to say to somebody, oh, well, they're managing fine without you.
Yeah.
You know, they're grand either. You have an important role, but they will manage until you get back, and your health is more important. You have to look after your health. And if you've come to the point of burnout to that extent where you needed time out, and your doctor said you needed time out, then it is important to listen to that, because people don't say that unless they really see a reason for it.
I think from my experience working with men, it often also comes up for them not feeling loved as kids.
Yeah.
Oftentimes with the dad. Or not seeing themselves being recognized, being seen, being valued in the family. And they can stay with somebody for a long, long time.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it can be intergenerational, you know, and it can be that that person's father's father, you know, it could have come down to the generations, and that's a difficult one, because it's kind of a learned behaviour then as well. You've learned this is how a man behaves, and then it can pass on to the son then, that sense, and I'm hoping as time goes on, but of course it's generational. It can get passed through the generations, but I am hoping as time goes on through the generations that will get better, that men won't feel I have to show my son how tough he has to be.
Yeah.
You know, because I hear that a lot, you know, my dad wanted me to be tough. Dad didn't want me to show my emotions. So it's very hard when you have that upbringing and that conditioning, I was going to say, which
it is conditioning.
Yeah. That it's very hard then to turn around then and say, well, actually, you know, I have that side that I'm entitled to have expressed the feminine side, or that emotional side, when you've been told, you know, that, you know, we men are tough. So that's very hard, you know, that is very hard. And I think men do still find that very hard, coming into a woman and kind of talking about those things. And they might come for less time, like a woman might come for longer.
Okay.
A man might dive in for a couple of sessions, you know, dip in, I was trying to say.
Yes.
Dip in for a couple of sessions and then maybe not come for as long. Depends, you know, I kind of see that with men, and it could be like that they're gone on to somebody else, which is fine. Or it could be that they had enough, they got enough from it, maybe, you know. But I think women, with a woman coming to a woman in counselling, a kind of a connection is made. It can be made that can be quite different, you know. And it's a safe space, you know, for a woman. And that can happen with men as well. They will say, you know, I'm getting used to it now. That can happen as well. It is really, I suppose, about kind of encouraging people to know it's fine. It's just a supportive place to come, you know, whether it's in the room or online, you know, it's a supportive space that's just for you, for somebody to listen to you and help you to explore things, you know, that they don't understand. And we have the training, and we have the skills, and we have the knowledge. We spent years studying to get to that point, to be able to have some different framework to help them to see themselves through. And that can really help people at times.
And then you were mentioning that mothers are coming to you with the guilt.
I suppose that, you know, for many, they have to go out to work. They need to work. They have good jobs. They have good careers. They work very hard to get to where they are. And I suppose there's a consciousness they feel that they're missing important moments of their children's lives, and that they're not there for them. And that's, I suppose, a deep mother's guilt, that it's very hard to, you know, there's nothing really I can say to make that go away, but I suppose just to normalise it and try and help a little bit with that guilt and say, you know, it's understandable that you need to go out to work, and most houses nowadays need 2 incomes coming in, and that, you know, and focus of all the times that you are there with the children, the evenings, the weekends, and to try and I suppose from an Adlerian point of view, I suppose, or from a solution focused point of view, or coaching point of view, look at what you're doing already that's so good and so well, and you are giving them a better life, I suppose, because you're going out to work and you're able to provide for them in what they need, but you're able to be with them and give quality time to them. So I do my best to kind of help to try to normalise that for people, and just sometimes somebody else. It's not about me giving them permission, but I suppose sometimes it's about encouraging them to give permission, or, you know, is the only word I can think of, permission to themselves, that it's okay, that they're not doing anything wrong, that their children aren't going to be damaged by it, you know, their children will be fine. If somebody else is minding them, they're learning social skills, and there's lots of benefits to that as well. So it's really, I suppose, about building up confidence maybe, and sometimes confidence can be lost through that kind of sense of guilt. So it's about building up, helping them to build up their confidence, believing in themselves, about look at what you're doing well, focus on what you're doing well, because we need about 5 positive thoughts to counteract every 1 negative, because the brain is hardwired for negativity and for lack of trust and fear and anxiety, to keep ourselves safe, you know, from the exactly from the, you know, the survival brain at the back of the head, you know, it's kind of, you know, we're trying to keep ourselves safe, so our brain is more in tune with the negative, so we need to kind of work on the positive. So I do encourage people to write down a couple of positive things about themselves at the end of the day, listen for compliments when they get them rather than dismissing them, you know, listen, because somebody wouldn't say it if they didn't mean it.
Right.
You know, people saying, you know, you get a compliment, oh, you have to say that. No, you don't have to say that. You know, people genuinely, I think, give compliments when they genuinely mean them. I do think, and it's to try and not have that automatic shut off when you hear that and just say, oh no, it couldn't be true. Excuse me, to really listen to that and try and take it on board. And if somebody is being negative or critical or judgmental of you, you know, think, do I need that person in my life? Maybe you do. But, you know, if it's somebody that's, you know, a work colleague or something, somebody like that you can avoid, I mean, you know, avoid them. You know, don't allow the destructive influences. Maybe that person doesn't mean any harm. Maybe they don't realise what they're doing. So it's not about, you know, giving out, saying the other person is a bad person, but it might be just something that's triggering or something that's affecting, you know, just to say I'll reduce my time around that person. Yeah.
Can I ask you more about working with somebody on their confidence?
So confidence is about action. It's about doing things. Sometimes it's about, can I stand up on a stage? Can I give a presentation? Can I talk to my neighbours? Can I do what I need to do in the meeting and work? Can I speak up in work? Confidence can be easier in some ways. It can be difficult, but it can be easier than working with self-esteem. Self-esteem could be when somebody really doesn't like themselves. They don't think they have value. They don't think they're a good person. It can be a more deep-seated feeling about themselves. It can be loathing. Some people really don't like themselves. So that's a more difficult one to deal with. So with self-esteem, you're going back to maybe childhood issues. Where did that come from? Was it a relationship with a parent or guardian? Was it a relationship with a sibling? Where did that come from? Did it happen in school?
Yeah.
What was, from an Adlerian point of view, what was your place in the family? Had it something to do with your place in the family? If you were a middle child, did you feel that you were, you know, you didn't get as much attention, or different reasons, different for everybody. I suppose I would be exploring with somebody, where did that feeling come from, and also what's currently happening in the present day. Is there something that's happening in the present day that's triggering that's
right,
making it worse? So it really to try and explore that, and then to see, you know, from what coping strategies somebody can use Can they start writing down positives about themselves at the end of the day? Can they start noticing when they do something nice or caring for somebody else? Can they just see something good in themselves that's not about doing? It's not about their actions or about their job or anything. It's just fundamentally themselves as a person.
As being rather than doing or performing.
Yes, and really to try and check in with that, to become aware of that. And then with confidence, I suppose taking small steps to do things, you know, if you want to talk in a meeting, just even say hello when you go into the meeting room, or do different strategies. I mean, some people will do the warrior stance when they go for the meeting, or some people do this, called that superwoman. So it depends, you know, different techniques like that, some practical helpful techniques, and just take a deep breath and just say, I'm as good as anybody else in the room. Some very simple techniques sometimes can be helpful to somebody, that they, when you say them, they think, oh, I knew that. That's not unusual, but I never thought of actually doing it. So sometimes it's just a simple reminder to somebody. And it is important to explore sometimes. And sometimes people don't want to go back to childhood issues. And they, you know, I often hear, and I'm sure you do as well, I don't want to open the can of worms. I often hear that expression, you know, they don't want to open the Pandora's box.
Yes.
And so some people don't want to go back. And then sometimes it is important to go back a little bit just to see where that came from. Because if
there's the kind of worms there, they are worms to be explored.
Yes.
You know,
yeah, exactly. And then sometimes people realise, you know, that yes, that applied back then, and it was true back then, maybe, or maybe it wasn't true back then, but now I'm an adult. Maybe now, in my case, I work with adults. I don't need to think that way anymore. I don't need to carry that. Going back to the old-fashioned, the tape. I don't need to play that tape anymore. I don't need to play that CD.
Which is so common, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
With clients not realising they are still playing the tape day by day.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is. And just kind of, you know, press stop on that tape and just really think about it in a different way. Press stop and try what's an alternative way of thinking about it. What's a better way of thinking about it? A kinder way? Is it true? Is it kind? Is there evidence for it? From the CBT point of view, is there evidence for that?
Yes.
Excuse me. And often there isn't evidence for that. You know, it can be just an old message that's still playing, and there may not be any evidence for it.
Yeah.
You know, in reality. So it's just permission. I use that word again, permission. Sometimes it's just, you know, people, for a person to give themselves permission to let go of an old way of thinking. You know, it's what we call in Positive Success Group, in the coaching, evolutionary echoes.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of, it's stuff that keeps coming and coming down through the generations, and just even notice it and catch it. And I see that again with a lot of parents. They're conscious of something that they have in their lives from their childhood, and they don't want to pass it on to their children. And the awareness, once the awareness is there, I always say to them, you're halfway there once you're aware of it. And you know that you don't have to keep bringing that onwards. Once you're aware that your self-esteem is low, or your confidence is low, or that you're anxious, you can do something about it. If you're not aware, and sometimes people come in and they don't know what's wrong, as you were saying earlier. Sometimes they don't know what's wrong. So it's like a helping hand to help them to find out what is wrong. And then once you know, then you can work on it. And sometimes it's just very simple steps, you know, because people ask me, do I have to change who I am? I've been asked that many times over the years, you know, and I say, no, you don't have to change who you are. You just maybe learn a few little different coping techniques. First of all, talk about it. See what comes to you as you're talking, because you're, you know, the client, they're the expert in their own life. I'm not the expert in their life. So talk, I listen, I'll ask a few things, and interrupt if I have to interrupt, but I try not to interrupt, and just see what comes. And no, you don't have to change who you are. You change maybe some of your coping strategies, or become more assertive, become less assertive, become aware of boundaries, find it's okay to to verbalize your boundaries. It's okay to say, no, I don't like that. I don't want that. It's okay to do that. So it's about kind of finding, for a lot of clients, finding their voice.
So maybe it's about enhancing who I really am rather than changing.
Exactly, or getting to like yourself as you are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How are you finding maybe working with people with the anxiety? We've covered the phone usage.
Yeah. It can be a wide range of things, of situations. A lot of people don't want to go out. They don't want to go outside of the house. And even since COVID, and there have been many benefits, I suppose, with online. We all say that, it was such a terrible time, but we look at the things that came from it that, there's no good way to put it. But, there are things. The online has come to the world, and hybrid working and working at home. And I suppose a lot of people, I find, even though I did work with people who worked online at home before it, I find that a lot of people have become not institutionalised, but almost that kind of institutionalised, that they don't go out, that they're working at home. And they do say themselves, a lot of people will say, I miss that, and I go into the office when I can, if I can. I miss seeing my colleagues. And this is so many people that I'm not breaking any confidentiality here, because this is a kind of across the board. People are saying that to me. So then it gets harder to go out, it gets harder to socialise. So staying inside, being afraid to go out, being afraid to meet people if you go out. That happens a lot with people who are out sick. They don't want to meet people because they'd say, well, I'm out sick, but I'm out. And they see me out and they're thinking he can't be sick, they're out. But you have to go out as part of your recovery from work-related stress or burnout. You have to go out for walks and build yourself back up to...
And re-engage with the society and with the friends and somebody.
Yeah. So then with anxiety, a lot of people have physical symptoms. They have heart beating, they have headaches, they have tremors, sweating, breathlessness, so many different physical. And then the mind, then the worry kind of, I can't do this anymore, I can't cope, or nobody likes me, or if I go outside, something, it's not safe out there. So many different things. And I suppose I would kind of start with the basics with somebody like that. Really, just, you don't have to go out. If you're too terrified to go out, you're not going to say to somebody you must go out. Start with deep breathing exercises, which I would teach people. Meditation, if they want to go on any of the apps that you can get, for meditation, and trying to regulate the nervous system. The nervous system is hypersensitive. It's hyper alert. It's stressed. The adrenaline is pumping. The cortisol, the stress hormone, is pumping. And we need stress. We need a certain amount of stress. We need a bit of cortisol. We wouldn't get out of bed in the morning if we didn't have a certain amount of cortisol. So it's not a bad hormone, but we need it in our life, but we can have too much of it. And people who are anxious have a kind of a constant flow of cortisol. So it's almost like trying to retrain their brain that it's safe. It's kind of back again to the survival brain, trying to give a message to the brain and to the mind that, I'm actually safe. I feel like there's danger. It's like a person could be convinced.
Right.
There's danger, there's threat in the world, and it's to try and, separate out if something traumatic happened before. Well, that's not happening now. It happened then, and it's valid, to validate the experience that it happened, but it's not repeating. In this current moment, you're safe. In this moment where you're sitting here right now, you're safe. Most of the time, most people are safe. So it's trying to reassure for a person to themselves, teach their brain that they're safe. Breathing exercises, meditation, going out for walks, getting connected with nature if they can. And we know by the beach and in the woods there are negative ions, which negative sounds like bad, but negative ions are very good for us. So negative ions, just to get that exposure, to let nature help us, that we're not just dependent on mind over matter. We're not just talking ourselves into feeling better, because that's part of it. But if we looked at it from a holistic point of view, there's different ways of coming at it. I mean, what you think, what you're feeling, what you're doing, you know, and trying to bring that all together and allow nature to help, allow music to help, anything that helps, whatever is your safe place, you know, to bring yourself and your mind to that safe place. So it's just a kind of retraining the brain and I suppose helping people to understand that we can, any of us could stay in that place of anxiety and our brains would stay there with us and our body would stay there with us. That is so important for us to kind of stop, take a breath, say, what can I do to help myself here? And it's a process and it takes time and it doesn't happen with one session and it doesn't happen within the session because, you know, it happens. I always say to people, you know, the statistics show that you'll make 80% more progress from therapy if you do the homework outside of the sessions. It doesn't all happen within the session. The session is only a starting point. I suppose to try and explain to people, if you're trying to build your confidence, you're trying to reduce anxiety, you know, confidence is an antidote to anxiety. That's the neurologist professor in Trinity College, Dr. Robertson. That's from him, you know, anxiety, confidence is an antidote to anxiety. And it really is, because people would say to me, oh, but I just want to feel less anxious. And I am working in that direction with them and helping them build their confidence. And it can be hard to see that at the time. But when you build your confidence, your anxiety will reduce. Because you feel more, you trust yourself more to do what you need to do in life then. You feel you've solid ground underneath you. And anxiety will reduce then as a result. So it's a holistic approach, I suppose, looking at everything. Who's around you, who's supporting you? Is there anybody who's not supporting you? That, you know, are there messages coming that aren't helpful? It's just kind of examine in an easy way. It's not, you know, in a holistic way, just noticing. You know, you don't have to go home and do a huge big questionnaire on yourself. It's just noticing what's happening, listening to your gut. If you feel a gut reaction, you feel something isn't comfortable, something isn't right, to listen to that. You know, if you listen to your heart and something doesn't feel right in your heart or in your head, your brain, listen to what your body is telling you. I suppose for clients, I always say to clients, listen to the messages that are coming up within yourself. And that can help a lot. And sometimes if there is anxiety, it is something that maybe is clashing with a person's values. They're in a job and they hate it, maybe. Yeah. So it's sometimes it's a message, because I know people don't like to hear that, but I sometimes say that's a message. Your body is trying to give you a message. Your mind is trying to give you a message that there's something there. So listen to that. And sometimes it can be just, I suppose, a person is just a very anxious person. And maybe they had an anxious parent or an anxious sibling growing up, and they may have learned or they may have inherited that whole thing that nature versus nurture. It's very hard to know, but it can be a case, and that can be more difficult if a person has been anxious all of their life. It can be more difficult, and it can be a case of a check-in with your doctor. Just make sure. Eliminate anything else. It's always good to be careful.
Heart disease.
Yeah, exactly, with palpitations.
Asthma,
yes.
Breathing.
Because sometimes people will say to me, but they'll just give me tablets. But no, they won't. They'll give you a check over and make sure that everything is okay. And I think that's important as well. And there are lots of other things that a person can do with anxiety. But the normal things that everybody hears about are the things that work. And breathing, you know, the box breathing is quite good, you know, and that is very good. And people are surprised how it works. Now, sometimes it takes a while. People think, as I might say, I did that, it was useless, but it can take a while for it to take effect. It can be a couple of weeks for some people. So it's kind of, the body, you know, what can you do to help your body to feel safe? Sometimes people like the weighted blanket and lots of different techniques. Even, you know, going to the tap and running the tap and run the water over, you know, anything kind of sensory, you know, and say to the water, take the stress or the tension away. Lots of different things like that. Then your mind, then what you're telling yourself. Obviously, if you're telling yourself you're not safe, your mind is going to believe it. And the emotions, then the tearfulness, the fear, and all of that is very difficult. And that's why people like you and I do the work we do, that somebody else is there to be with somebody through that and explain to them, you're not actually going crazy. You know, this is a normal reaction to stress, to trauma, or to anxiety, or, you know, with depression, that very low mood. It's just explained to somebody, this is part of what you're going through. If a person is depressed, you know, it's what they're thinking, their negative thinking is part of that depression. And when the depression lifts, that negative thinking is unlikely to be there as badly as it is.
How do you find your clients reacting to the psychoeducational part, right? You mentioned nervous system, you mentioned neurochemicals.
I think it's different. Some are very open to it, and sometimes if I mention, have you heard of the fight or flight syndrome, a lot of clients will say they have heard of it. Some have never heard of it. So I think it's important for us as therapists to use our judgment with that, because some people don't want that, and they want just to come in and talk, and they just want a space to get something off their chest, and they don't want that, and that's fine as well. So I think the judgment is something that's so important, to see whether somebody, and you know straight away if you start explaining something to somebody and they're looking away, or they're looking a bit disinterested, or they look a bit irritated, I just drop it. You know, because if they're not there for that and they don't want that. But I think most people are open to it. Most people do want to understand what's happening, and they do like to have an explanation for what could be happening. And then if they have an explanation, it takes a weight off them most of the time, because they might be blaming themselves.
Yeah.
Do you see that as well?
Yeah.
And could be blaming themselves, or, you know, what's wrong with me? And once they understand this is the nervous system that's, you know, that's been triggered here, and it's the neurochemicals, or the fight or flight syndrome, or the, you know, do you want to fight or freeze or fawn, you know, depending, which you know, if somebody's very frozen, if they're very low. And just when people understand that, I think for most people, they really appreciate that. And I have a graphic in my room, the window of tolerance, Dan Siegel, and people really appreciate the explanation of that. And it's so simple in a way. I mean, obviously it's complicated in the background.
Once you know, it's simple.
Exactly.
Because once you understand it, it's like, that's why my heart is beating so fast. That's why I have a shallow breath, or that's why I'm like gasping for air, because I'm in a fight or flight.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it helps a lot when most people are very interested. They want that. Because many people come in and say, I have a good family, I have good friends, I have people to talk to. So our role is more than being good trained listeners, and the listening is so important. Of course it is, and it's an essential part of what we do. But we have our understanding of psychology and the brain and the nervous system, that people want that explanation. People want to understand what's going on inside them in a way that they can use. You know, it's like news you can use. You know, it's really something that they can use, that's practical. They can take home and work on it. That if they understand, if I do write down 3 or 4 good things about myself at the end of every day, I'm training the neural networks in my brain to think more nicely, more kindly about myself. And then you take that out the next morning and look at that before you start your day. You start your day on a better note. It's simple, but it works. Or if people understand that something that happened in childhood was actually traumatic for them, but they didn't know at the time because it was their norm. They didn't know until
and nobody asked their questions. Nobody checked with them how they are afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
They had no space to process it in a healthy way.
Exactly, yeah. And then, you know, I think you may have mentioned earlier, we were talking, you know, when you become a teenager then, or I was having this conversation with somebody recently, when you become a teenager and you go into other people's houses and you see things are different, and these parents aren't fighting all of the time, you know, and then you realise, and that is a shock in itself. And I suppose it's important then to find a way to process that then. And maybe in later life, somebody in their 30s or 40s could come along to you or I to process that then much later on. That it was traumatic, but they didn't know.
And it was left on the shelf.
Yes.
Oftentimes for a long time. And you mentioned homework. I'm a huge fan of homeworks in therapy. I know some therapists wouldn't give homeworks to their clients, right? I probably could not work without working with homeworks.
Yeah.
What do you think? Where are you on the scale?
Yeah, I'm all for homework. I think it is important. And sometimes you have to call it something different, because some people say, oh, it reminds me of being in school. So sometimes you have to change the wording. I think homework is really important, even if it is a breathing exercise, to come and practice it 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening. Or if there's a list, you know, a decision-making list, what are the advantages for you of doing this? What are the disadvantages? If somebody's trying to make a big decision and to go home. And sometimes I try and do it in the room, but then I might do it in the room with somebody, or they might do it in the room, you know, the list of how will this help me if I do this? How will it hurt me? How will it help others, my significant others? How could it hurt? And maybe to add that, you know, add to that list, bring it home and add to it. And there are so many different exercises that I use. And whatever it is, and it could be, you know, to go for a walk for 5 minutes that way, one way, 5 minutes
exposure.
another way. Exactly. Noticing your safety behaviours, just as you've said that, if they're, you know, if you're not doing things, what are the safety behaviours? What situations are you avoiding that you could try and immerse yourself a little bit more back into? So often it's awareness in the beginning. The homework is our awareness exercises. It could be, I have an assessment of strengths that I like to give to people. Lots of different questions. What did I do well before? What did somebody say I did well? Or what do I like about me? And there's about 30 questions on it. I say to people, just do a couple at a time, but just to build up self-awareness. So I think it's really important, because then you're conscious then that there's a work in progress while I'm outside of the session. And the people who don't do the homework, I find they come back, oh, I didn't think about this since I walked out the door last week. And it's kind of, they're not getting as much benefit from it, from the session. Yes, they're having that space for an hour for somebody to listen and explore and talk to them, ask them questions. But when a person does the homework, I think it makes a big difference. So in solution-focused brief therapy, we use scaling. We would say to somebody, how are you feeling now? They might say 5. And I might say to them, well, what could you do that would help you to get to 5.5 or to 6? So somebody might say, well, I always feel better when I go for a walk. I always feel better when I play music. I always feel better when I drink less coffee. So that the homework for that week then, from a solution-focused point of view, could be to do that walk, to drink less coffee, to spend less time on the phone. And then that's their homework for the week then, to watch that, to be aware of that. And then they might come back next week and say, I did that, or I stopped watching depressing movies, or I stopped listening to the news because it was bringing me down. And then you might say, how are you feeling now? And they might say, it's a 6.5. So I think the homework is really important. If somebody knows that something helps them to feel better, they choose their own homework. I'm not assigning their homework in that way. They know what's going to help them to feel better. And I sometimes would use an activity sheet and help somebody to plan out what they're going to do and put that in there so it's written and they can see, this is one of my tasks for the week, so they know what they have to do for the week. Not what they have to do, what they want to do for the week. And it's a reminder. So I think that the homework is essential, whatever it is, whether it's self-chosen homework, which is always the best, because then they're doing something that they want to do, or if it's something somebody wants to remember or go through something that happened when they were young and they want to write it down, you know, a chronology of it, that, you know, and they want to do that and they think it's going to be helpful. You know, I think it's really important, and I think it's a collaboration then, we're both working together. It's not somebody coming in saying, well, you're the counsellor, you know, you make me feel better. Because as I often say to people, I wish I had a magic wand, but you know, we don't have a magic wand. So I think we're working then collaboratively. And if a person goes away and does the homework. Now, I wouldn't give homework to somebody every session. It would depend on where they are, how they're feeling. But it could be something very small. There's usually something small, at least, you know, to catch yourself when you're being mean to yourself.
Yeah.
Notice it. You know, that homework, that's so important, I think, with confidence or anxiety. To become aware of how many times you might be saying something to yourself, and just notice it kindly, and just, you know, it's you know, be a watcher of your thoughts, and notice that, and then say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to replay the old messages.
Can you tell me more about working with individuals on their relationships?
It's a difficult and interesting one, because the other person isn't in the room. Sometimes it would be dealing with somebody who has an abusive partner, or has been in an abusive relationship in the past, or sometimes it can be just different family dynamics. I try and find out, I suppose, what's going on. First of all, what's happening, what happened before, what is it reminding you of? If it's something that they can't quite put their finger on, is it reminding you of something else that has happened in the past? Is it reminding you of a previous relationship? And I suppose it always, from an individual point of view, it always comes back to the person themselves. What can they do to help themselves? Because people want, understandably, it's human nature, we'd like somebody else to change and be the way we want them to be. It would make our life easier, but that's not the reality of life. So it always comes back to the individual. What's your role in the situation? Is there anything that you can change? Is there anything that you're doing that isn't contributing to the relationship? Is there anything that you can change? Are you safe in the relationship? You know, are there children involved? Are they safe? It really depends on every situation to try and explore, find out what's happening, who's around that can help, what resources, what people are there, what support network is there a support network? If there isn't one, to try and find one in the community or within, you know, professional organisations or different kind of resources. And it is a case that the other person isn't in the room. They're not there. They can't speak for themselves. So I suppose it is exploring with the person themselves. What can they do to help themselves? Is there anything that they can do? And people are often surprised with how much they can affect change in a relationship by how they change their behaviour. You know, and it could be to withdraw from arguments, to not, you know, to kind of practice the emotional regulation, to do the deep breathing, to leave the room, all of the things that are known for as long as time exists. You know, take 10 deep breaths, count 10, leave the room, and practice the emotional regulation. And that's difficult, as you know from your work. If somebody wasn't regulated as a child or as a baby, you know, they find it difficult. Then they weren't taught how to regulate their own nervous system, and that can be quite difficult. And they may be conscious of it, and they might be conscious that they're shouting at their children, or, you know, they're doing things that they don't want to be doing. But it doesn't come from a bad place, but it comes from a dysregulated nervous system within themselves. In that way. So I'm generalising there. I mean, every situation is different. So it's kind of coming back to a person. How can you help yourself? What can you do within the relationship? Sometimes people need to step out of a relationship if it's abusive, or they feel that they're not being valued within the relationship, or being, you know, not being treated with respect, you know, and the other person isn't, you know, willing to agree with that, or they're not willing to cooperate.
Or meet them halfway through, somewhere halfway in the middle.
Exactly, because relationships are 50-50. You know, one person can't do it all on their own. So that is, and using the I statements, I feel, I think,
Yes.
I believe. So you're not saying to somebody, oh, you did this or you did that or you didn't do this. You're trying to own your own feelings, and then you're saying what you believe. And that's all you can really do, really. You can tell somebody, and if they don't listen or they don't want to listen, you can't force anybody to listen. So relationships are difficult, and sibling relationships are difficult because people grow up in the same home, but when they grow up in the same home, it doesn't mean they have the same experiences.
Yeah.
And Adler would say, no, if there's two children that grow up in a home, neither have the same parents, even though they have the same parents, but they have different experiences with those parents.
Can you elaborate more, because that's such a profound thing that it's sometimes very hard to describe to clients?
It is a difficult one.
Because
I suppose
they
it's
would
the
believe
lens.
Believe that they had the same parents.
Yeah.
But then how do you go about explaining it?
And I suppose it's kind of, again, from the Adlerian point of view, the private logic, it's a different lens. We're all looking at life through a different lens. An older child, if you have two children in a home, you have an oldest and a youngest. The oldest was the only one in the beginning, and they had their parents to themselves, maybe for a year or two, or maybe for longer. And they grew up knowing the importance of themselves in the world in a different way. And then a child comes along, a younger child comes along, their attention is the attention of the parents is taken away. They're not the king on the pedestal any longer. And the younger child comes along then, and there's always been two. So that child has a different experience of life. That child always knew how to share their parents with somebody else. Whereas the first child didn't know how to share the parents with anybody else.
Or they didn't learn.
Maybe so. They may have resented it, and I suppose that's where the term sibling rivalry comes from. I suppose maybe they don't accept it. Maybe they never accept it, that somebody else comes along. So it's a different experience. You're seeing life through a different lens. You have a different parent, because parents can't be the same to every child, even though a parent will always say, well, I don't have favourites, of course, but at the end of the day it's not real, because you're a different person. You have your own personality. A child, I should say, they have their own personality. They're different. So, a parent is going to be different with every child. I don't think it's possible. So, every child, has a different parent from that point of view then. And it's not the same, and it can't be the same. And parents try to be equal and even with children, but it's not always possible, because that child comes with their own personality, their own needs, their own requirements, their own demands, their own way of being in the world. And parents will say to me, but I brought them all up the same, and how are they so different? Yeah. But they just are. They have their own personality. There's nothing can be done about that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that to me is how every child is a different parent.
I think that might come back to the guilt you mentioned, right? The first child, or if there are maybe two of them or three, the first child is doing amazing in the school, but not the second one.
Yeah.
And they're like, what did I do different? I didn't change anything as a parent. Yeah. So I'm going to blame myself for them not being able to be okay in school.
Exactly, yeah. So I always say, to parents, look at how well you have done, look at everything you have done well. Try not to look at the things that didn't go perfectly, because not everything is within a parent's control. There's a whole society, there's school, there's lots of other influences, and there's genetics as well. There's two parents, there's genes and learning. It's complicated. From the Adlerian approach, I suppose, really, Adler believed we see the whole person and not the problem. So in one way, it could be seen as a small deficit in my training, in that I had to go and learn about all of the problems when I left college, because we see the whole person and not the problem from an Adlerian point of view. And that is why I try not to kind of label people. That's why I found it very hard to kind of focus on one grouping of people to work with, which is always encouraged to know who your client is. But I suppose I see people as people. I tend not to want to box people into certain categories. I suppose I try very much with all of my clients to see the whole person and not the problem. And they may, as you know, present with one thing and then it could turn out to be something very, very different. So I would work with people who, across the board, many people with ADHD, people with autism, LGBTQ community. I work with many people and I try and see the person and not the problem. But the type of problems that come would be, I suppose, for a lot of people, not feeling fulfilled in life, kind of low mood, not necessarily depression. And with anybody that comes, we don't assume that they're coming about that. If somebody's a plumber, you're not assuming, oh, he's having stress with his plumbing job, or he's a carpenter, or it's a doctor, so it's stress related, or somebody who's coming, a gay person is coming, you're not assuming they're coming about that, because they're all people, they're all dealing with the same issues that everybody deals with. I never make assumptions, because sometimes somebody comes and you think it might be one thing and it turns out to be something else. So I suppose, but a sense of lack of fulfillment can happen for a lot of people, can be a low mood, that they're not depressed. They say, I'm not depressed, I can get out of bed every day, but I just don't feel happy. I just feel a bit empty, a bit low. And I see that a lot, unfortunately. And sometimes a person is not fulfilled in their job. They're in a job that they hate their job. But maybe it pays very well and it's got good benefits, or it's near their home, or they were waiting to get a job for a long time, took them a long time to get the job. So often that's a difficult one. And sometimes people come in and they say their life is really going well, everything's fine, they've a good partner or a good family or a good job, everything is fine, there's no problems. They can't understand why they don't feel happier in themselves. So I suppose from a coaching point of view, I would kind of work with them on their values, or even from a counselling point of view, from their values. What's important to you in life? Are you working in an area that is true with your values? Or are you working in a company that's against your values? Are you being asked to do things in work that contradict your values, that clash with your values? Are you going outside enough? Are you inside all of the time? Are you going out for walks? Are you in touch with nature? Because some people know they love nature and not everybody does. But not everybody realises that we're kind of hardwired as human beings to be outside, to be in contact with nature. So I really am, obsessed with telling people, try and get outside, try and get out in nature. Try and get outside. We're not designed to be inside four walls all day, every day. And sometimes it can be something as simple as a lifestyle change, a very subtle, small change. It can be alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. It can be somebody's drinking a lot and they think, well, I'm only having one every evening or two every evening. But alcohol is then permanently in your system and it is a depressant. And if you're on any antidepressant medication, it's going to be causing that to not work as well. So it's trying to explore from a holistic point of view what is going on. And it can be something simple. Again, it can be that somebody doesn't have to change who they are. They don't have to change their life, but just a little tweak that sometimes somebody on the outside can see. I mean, we don't all see things ourselves from the inside. I don't see things from the inside. Sometimes I have to go and ask somebody for an opinion or a thought, or go to my supervisor and say, without breaking any confidentiality, that just there is a support for us, and to check in with somebody or check in with a friend or a family member. And we don't have all of the answers ourselves. So it's just to try and explore, and somebody on the outside can see something that we might not see ourselves. It could be something very simple, like you're drinking 10 cups of coffee a day and you can't sleep at night. And you know, not to be, you know, mean to somebody. They seriously don't see it, because maybe they did it for years and maybe it was fine when they were younger, and maybe they get a little bit older and it just doesn't work anymore. It's just, you know, things change. So I would kind of try to look at things from a very holistic point of view, with fulfillment, you know, to try and see what's missing, or what can be tweaked. What do you want to add in, you know? And it could be just something that needed to be vented about.
Yeah.
And once somebody gets that out, and somebody doesn't think that they're crazy, or somebody listens to them and accepts that this really happened to them, or they really felt that, it can be just a kind of cathartic process for somebody. And that's not me saying I've all the answers or that I have the magic wand in any way, but it can be just sometimes an outside eye. It could be myself, could be a doctor, could be anybody that they talk to, could be a close friend, just to allow somebody else in, tell somebody how you're feeling. And somebody else might be able to say, well, do you remember when you used to do that hobby? You used to be, you know, feel so much happier. So it's just, I suppose, let somebody in. It mightn't be the person you'd want, but it could be somebody else, you know, it could be a stranger.
You also mentioned working with LGBTQI members of the community.
Yeah. I think it's really important to, again, see the whole person and not the problem. I don't see any reason why not, except sometimes for somebody, LGBTQI person, that they might feel because I'm not, that I don't understand. So for them, it might not always work. But for me, I don't see any reason why not to. And sometimes people like to have just another view, a listening ear. And it can be that somebody's coming about identity, or they're not really sure about coming out, or it can be that they had a traumatic time when they told their parents, or when they told their family, or when they told somebody, or some people just haven't, you know, come out or told anybody, and maybe coming into somebody like myself and saying it and being accepted, and it's not, you know, an issue, that it helps them then to go on to the next step. Who's the next person you'd like to tell?
Yeah.
Who needs to know? And then it can be, as I said earlier, people just coming with the same regular issues. People aren't always coming about sexuality or sexual identity. They have the same, you know, everybody has the same day-to-day issues and problems. And so it could be that somebody's coming about something else like that. For me, it's really important that you know, that we are there, and for everybody to come, and it's up to them to choose then if they want that then, or if they prefer to go to somebody who's the same as them. But we can't have gone through everything that everybody has gone through. It's impossible to have experienced every experience that people have gone through. So you do your best with every situation to show empathy, to feel empathy, to try and understand it from the other person's point of view, what that is like for them, what it has felt like for them. And I have, I suppose, a mix of men and women coming, you know, to me from that community, and that's the way it's been for many years. And I'm privileged for anybody who comes in the door, you know, that trusts me enough to talk to me about their private life.
And has it happened to you that people basically express that they don't want to work with you because you're not a member of the community?
No, nobody would say it, I suppose. I mean, sometimes maybe something might be implied a little bit that they, you know, but I don't think anybody has ever said. But I suppose people just don't, they don't come back, I suppose. I mean, if that happens with anybody. And I mean, I've no experience of that, somebody coming for one and not from that community, somebody coming for one and not coming back, or leaving in the middle of a session or anything like that. Thankfully, I've not had that experience. But I suppose something, I mean, clients no matter where they're from, there'd often be an odd testing question. You know, as you know yourself, they would ask something to see if you understand. Or sometimes maybe, you know, something might be said, I suppose, which for me, like, oh, straight people don't do that. You know, that has been said to me. You know, that, you know, so that kind of thing, but not in a kind of, you haven't a clue, I'm not staying here kind of point of view. But that would have been said. And I suppose, and you know, and I understand that. And it, you know, I can, you know, I can appreciate that's the experience. And even though I might be thinking, well, actually, I would, you know, you know, sometimes there can be assumptions, and that's that we don't understand, or we wouldn't do something that maybe. So sometimes there can be assumptions, and that can happen from everybody. That, you know, and that's human. That's our human nature. We're kind of it's natural to have biases and expectations and that. So I would try and work through that with somebody then, and sometimes it isn't the principal important part of the session. Maybe it's a throwaway remark. I know it's part of my job to explore, but sometimes you let things go, depending on whether they seem relevant or not.
I think the reason why I'm asking is because, at least in my understanding, therapy is very much a profession not based on your experience, right? Like you're not going to most likely go to a therapist who has all the symptoms you ever had.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've never been asked, like, oh, did you have depression? Because only if you did, I can work with you.
Yeah.
Are you divorced? Because only if you are, I can work with you. You know, so it's interesting for me to hear the experience you have.
Yeah. And I suppose I try, and empathise without having had that experience. I try and empathise from the point of view of we all as humans, and maybe comparing isn't in this way isn't the right way to do, but we've all had experiences of humans as being isolated or not understood or not respected or
rejected.
Being marginalised, rejected. So I suppose that from that point of view, I understand that feeling as a human being. So that draws me to be able to empathise with any kind of person who has struggles or difficulties. And that's not to say that everybody, you know, in the gay community has that, you know, some people are very fortunate that they've good families, accepting families that are fine, you know, accept them and love them as they are. But I suppose, you know, across society, there are different families and are people that aren't accepting. So I'm drawn as a human, I suppose, to empathise with anybody, whether it's whatever situation it is, whether it's you know, ageism or anything, you know, racism or anything like that. I mean, I fight against all of those things. When I say fight, I'm not out there on the streets, you know, protesting, but I do what I can within my own role to try and empathise and understand and support anybody who has those experiences. You know, and then as I say, repeating myself, the Adlerian approach, seeing the whole person and not the problem or the issue or the label. I tend not to kind of see that, except obviously, you know, you need to hear the experience of the person and their own experience and what they've gone through because of whatever they are going through, you know.
And you having the experience of almost 3 decades. Do you see any improvement, like in regarding of the LGBTQI issues in society? Are people having maybe just tiny bit less difficulties coming out?
I think
so. Themselves?
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. And I suppose it depends on, again, from family to family as well. There are still difficulties, I suppose, depending on family, but in general, and somebody else might disagree with me, but I suppose my feeling is that a society is much more accepting and understanding, and I know it's kind of, there's still a lot of difficulty out there, still a lot of challenge, still a lot of bigotry out there, there is, but I think it is a lot better. I think it's a lot more normal. People aren't judging each other as much, you know, and people can walk down the street holding hands and, you know, and I think it is a lot better. It was kind of, when I started, it was kind of, it was much more unspoken about in society. It definitely was. So I think now people do accept more that people have the right to be who they are, live their lives as they wish. I feel, even though I know there's still huge challenges, maybe I would hope from a minority of people, but I think overall, I think it's a lot better. And even coming into my counselling room years ago, people would be very hesitant to even say, that I'm gay, or they'd be. But now, people themselves, they're not as worried coming in. Now maybe it's because I have it someplace on my website or something like, people can see that I'm LGBTQI friendly before they come, but I think years ago, I do remember people were slower to say it.
Yeah.
And different things like that. So I think it is, I think people are, freer to be themselves now. Overall, it's better. It's better, I think.
Yeah.
But than it was. And I can't really, at the same time, I'm not living that experience, so I don't know. But it seems to be improving to me from where it was.
Maybe could I ask you about working with women after menopause? Would you have many of clients experiencing this?
Yes, I would, and it is very common now. And I would have when I was younger myself, and I probably didn't understand it as much, but the age that I'm at now, I have, as I know we were saying, you don't have to have experienced everything to counsel with it, but I suppose there is a different level of empathy when you reach a certain age, but I definitely do. And I suppose, and especially even younger women than myself, 40s, maybe the perimenopause. And that's a very difficult time because it's very hard to identify what's going on then. And it does increase anxiety, and it's kind of a biological anxiety from the hormonal shift. So that for people is very hard to kind of pin that down. It's hard for doctors. There's no blood test exactly because the hormones are fluctuating all of the time. So I suppose for women then that are kind of postmenopausal, or just when the menopause has happened and they're technically postmenopausal, it is a difficult and challenging time, and lots of people have different kind of physical sensations and tiredness and fatigue and lots of different things that they have to contend with. And I think it's a lot better in society now than it was. There's a lot of information about it. Even the fact, I know you're a professional, but the fact a man asking a woman about that, I think about 10 years ago, I'm not sure that would have happened. I mean, the awareness is after increasing so much.
Even in the last 5 years.
In the last 5, probably, right? Yes. Yeah.
I've seen so many things, even HSE and even other podcasters were doing stuff about menopause difficulties.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how to treat them in therapy, because there were things I did not know at all. And I'm sure that I still don't know about this as a man, right? But like for me, the interesting part is sometimes women have difficulties communicating this to their partners. And there is a bit of a shame of like, my body is changing. I don't think he knows. He's maybe expecting, same level of intimacy or something. And he maybe doesn't understand my mood swings, my hot flushes. How do I tell him? How do you experience this with your clients?
Well, it is very difficult, and I recently saw a webinar for men about the menopause, and I think it wouldn't be the first time I've seen it. So there is a lot of information out there now for men, which is great, but I suppose the man has to go and take, book that webinar and go on it. It is quite difficult. I think for most of the women that I have met going through that, they've been fortunate enough, for the majority of them have been able to explain it and have been able to, talk to their partners about it. And I know there's a lady in Waterford does a lot of education about menopause, Breda Birmingham, and she would always say, it's not the terrible, terrible time that people make it out to be. Now, it's pretty horrible at times. But, I suppose there is a lot of help for it, and even for physical problems or, having problems with intimacy, there are things that the doctors can do to help with that. There are things, things you can get that can help with that, and minding your health. And for those who can have HRT, it can help a lot with that. Exercise, fresh air, nutrition, hugely helps as well with the menopause. And there's a lot of education there about it. And for those who have real difficulties, I would say, go to the doctor. There are doctors who are, there are menopause clinics in Waterford. There are specialised menopause clinics in Cork and Dublin. And, the help is there. And I think it is trying to, get over that sounds terrible, get over, but try and come to terms with the embarrassment, try not to be embarrassed about asking for that help. And no doubt it is very, very difficult for some people, and it can be horrendous for some people. And other people, it's not as difficult. Everyone is different. And I think that also makes it difficult, because some people sail through it. And then for the other people who don't, who are having a terrible, difficult time with it, it's kind of, well, I had no problem with it, why are you having it?
My sister went through it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
She's grand. Why am I having these issues?
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it can be the sister that can say that, that I didn't have those problems, and they don't understand it sometimes if they weren't through that themselves. So it is, but the awareness and the conversation about it is definitely getting much, much better, and people are talking about it, and it's not the bad word, the unmentionable. When my mother was going through it, it was called the change.
The change. So there was not even the word menopause being used.
No, you didn't say the M word. No, it was the change of life, which is probably a nice term for it in some ways, but it wasn't addressing what it really was, I suppose, for many people. It was kind of just making it seem like a short-term change that was happening, and then everything would be okay. But as we know now, I suppose people, your heart can be affected, your bones can be affected if you don't get the right care throughout the menopause, through HRT or nutrition or whatever, exercise, weight, lifting the weights. We have to lift the weights, to keep the bones strong for everybody.
Has it been talked about maybe at the course or at the beginning of your career in your therapy room?
No, it certainly wouldn't have been mentioned. No. It's really in the last 5-6 years that it has been talked about, and starting with Davina McCall over in the UK, I think she was one of the first to really start talking about it openly. So no, it wouldn't have been spoken about in my course at all. But thankfully there are webinars available on it now. We can get education on it. There's lots of knowledge out there about it now, because women are 50% or so of the population, and every woman that gets to that age, that's lucky enough, to get to that age, will experience the menopause. So it's something that we really do need to take care of.
Monica, with the amount of experience you have in your practice, what do you find still interesting in being a counsellor?
I find that people are fascinating. I just love people, and it's never changed for me. That every person that comes in the door, they're all different. There's no two people in the world the same. And I just think it's really interesting. People come with different life experiences, different challenges that they've overcome, different things that they want from coming to me for counselling. Sometimes I can help them with what they want, and sometimes I can't. And sometimes I feel disappointed if I can't help them with what they want, or if my process or my way of working isn't right for them. But it doesn't, I accept that though. It's fine. I respect that. But I love people, and I meet really interesting people, and I meet, the privilege to be able to help somebody that comes in when they're not in the best of form, they're feeling low. And even by the end of an hour, that somebody might say, I feel lighter now, I feel better. I mean, it's a huge privilege in life to be able to help somebody to do that. And I'm, they could go to a different counsellor, they could have the same experience, But for me, I'm able to do that. So I love that. And I love being able to help people. And I love being able to, I suppose, offer a small bit of psychoeducation to explain to people why something is happening, and for somebody to say, oh, maybe I thought I was going crazy, to be able to reassure them. So it's really fascinating. And then over time, then we build connections and rapport. And rapport is very important for an effective counselling relationship, therapeutic relationship. The rapport builds, and then you can do more work as the rapport builds. A person feels more comfortable with you and they're more able to open up to you. And some people are able to open up from day one, and that's good as well, because you know, I like when people say to me, you know, you're easygoing. I don't feel I feel relaxed with you. It's such a privilege to be able to do that and to be able to help people in their dark or stressful times. And when I say it never changed, I mean, you get days, of course you get days. Some days are more difficult than others. And some days, you know, the match is not right and I'm not able to fix, because when a person wants me to fix something and I'm not able to fix, because I'm not there to fix anybody. And, you know, those days can be, you know, disappointing or difficult. Because you want, you know, in our work, we want to be able to help people. But it's fine, you know, you might be able to give them a hint as to what direction to go in or somebody else to contact. So I just with the difficult days or just situations, it's a wonderful job. It's a wonderful privilege. And then being able to use the coaching skills that I learned and incorporating them when they're appropriate into the counselling room, I think that's great, to have as many tools and techniques as you can have. Because the more tools the person has in their toolbox, it's better for them. And learning is great. I'm learning all of the time. I'm learning from the clients. I'm studying. I'm doing my continuing professional development all of the time. I did a course last year on critical reflection for therapists. And so I'm learning all of the time, and it keeps me learning, and it keeps my mind, you know, active, I suppose, you know, it keeps me informed all of the time, because that's so important, to be responsible in the room with somebody, that you have all of the knowledge that you're able to have in order to help them to the best of your ability.
Can you tell me more about the coaching part of your business?
Yeah.
So when somebody comes for coaching, how does it look? What do you guys do?
So I suppose the first thing is before we actually start the sessions is to have a discovery call and make sure that the situation, I was going to say issue, but they don't use the word issue in coaching because it seemed to be a negative. But, you know, whatever situation they're bringing to the coaching, that it's appropriate for coaching, that it is a coaching agenda, that it wouldn't be something that would be more suitable in a counselling room. So we find out first of all if it's appropriate for counselling, and then we meet, and then the first thing that we do is explore into that, make sure it's the right and meaningful agenda, and it's the best thing, that it's the most meaningful, most helpful thing that they can work on, so that they're very clear for themselves that this is the goal that we're working on. This is the most meaningful thing, that you're not halfway through sessions and they're saying, well, what am I getting out of this? You know, same thing with counselling, that people, you know, we have a kind of a generally agreed goal for counselling. And I worked then with something called the Enabling Wheel that was designed by Positive Success Group. And we worked to see what resources they have in their life, what can help them to get where they want to go. And are they utilising all of the resources within themselves, outside of themselves? And there's a good bit more to that, but that's just generally what we use at the first session. And we work on values from the head to the heart and the gut. That's where the neuroscience comes in. What you use to plan, do you use your head? Are you a thought person? Are you a thinking person? How do you operate in the world? And are you a heart person? Are you a gut person? So we do kind of a deep dive into values. We work on self-limiting beliefs. We try and discover the empowering beliefs, and we work on emotional intelligence. And I suppose it's whatever the client's goal is, what are they trying to achieve? And we're using those tools and other coaching tools in order to get clarity, get focus, and see, again, we talked about homework, to see what homework needs to be done in between sessions. What do they want to achieve? What will help them to achieve that? It's not always following that structure. It can be different, because every client is different, and somebody comes in, and that's kind of a structure that I have, but that could be replaced by something else. The client comes in and they maybe want something different, or they want to plan their tasks for the year ahead, and they want to break the year down into quarters, and they want some help to make sense of their career, for the year ahead, progression. Yeah. So it's different for everybody. It depends on what somebody would want. But those tools are there, and of course, the SMART tool that's been there for many years in the coaching world, the time management tools, the Stephen Covey time management matrix, and the Pomodoro technique, and there's lots of different tools that would be used, and other ones as well, depending on what the person wants and what they need. And so at the moment I have 2 programs. I have aligned leadership and I have aligned confidence. So I suppose the aligned leadership is kind of, for the leader, maybe working through the values, their own values, the values of the company. How are they working with their team? How is their communication with their team? Is there open communication? Or is it old style managerial way of doing things, and the aligned confidence then is obviously building confidence in that along the lines of what we've spoken about there, but just in a different way. So that wouldn't necessarily be for an employee or somebody in a leadership role. It could be just anybody that wants to build their confidence. And some of the same tools would be used for that, and some different ones. So it's more of a structured approach, and it's very much present and future based. We're not going into trauma or past issues unless it's something that's, having an impact on something today, and it's not something that's requiring counselling. So you can't say to somebody, you can't mention, something that happened 10 years ago. So you have to be a little bit flexible with it. I suppose I'm able to be flexible with it, because I'm trained in both areas. So I kind of would see very quickly if this was something that wasn't appropriate for coaching, that it was something that needed, a referral for counselling. And the neuroscience then, it's kind of a part of it then is, the neurochemicals, the education around the neurochemicals and what you can do to help yourself to feel better, and boundaries, and assertiveness, different kind of things like that, depending on what somebody wants. If somebody doesn't feel fulfilled in their career, you may be working with the values more to see, if this isn't the career for you, if this isn't the place that feels right for you, where would you be? Where would you go instead? What kind of career path would you follow instead? It depends on the agenda. And that's a more structured, that's a 4 to 6 session program.
Right.
So people know there's a beginning, middle and end to it. So they know their homework, if they do their work in between, that they agree to in the contract when we start, that they're going to have more success, they're going to have better outcomes out of the coaching, and they know it's at an end for then, and they can continue under different circumstances or go away and take a break and come back later on. But for most people, the 6 session structure is enough for them, to work on a particular topic. Yeah, so that's just a separate part of my practice. And I'm also a mentor for Network Ireland in the professional and personal development category. Because I am experienced and I'm working a long time in business, as we've said, nearly 30 years, I have a good bit of experience about running a business as a solo entrepreneur. So I'm a mentor for Network Ireland, that's free of charge for the members. And then outside of that, then I do offer mentoring to people on a private basis as well, if anybody needs a bit of, guidance and for the direction that they're taking in their business, or just for particular individual little steps that they're taking, and they just need somebody, a listening ear, or somebody to kind of maybe give them some tips about what direction they should take. So that's nice.
Anything else? Any other topics that maybe I missed? Let me have a look.
I don't think so. I can't think of anything else. My brain is slowed down now a little bit now after all the talking, so I can't think of anything else. Really.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think I've made the points I'd like to make, you know.
So maybe I'll just ask you, like, how can people find you, basically?
Yeah. Are you happy with that? Is that enough?
Oh, it's amazing.
Was I clear
Do you
enough?
know how long passed? Like, for me, it just feels like an hour, but 2 hours.
No way. No
And
way.
I'm like,
My God.
Yeah. You know, because I was halfway through, I was looking, 1 hour. It felt like 20 minutes with you. You know, it was great. Like,
that's
you know,
great.
yeah.
Well, I would have thought now a counselling hour as well. Now I would have thought, you know, maybe I'm not sure.
We would have the clock in our head.
Exactly,
right?
we do. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just feels so different with you.
Yeah.
It's flying. Like,
Well, I'm enjoying it too, and your questions are good, thought-provoking questions. You know,
Thank
as
you.
well. And you know, it's
Thank you.
very good. Yeah. So that's absolutely. I'm happy with that. If you're happy with that, you know.
Yeah. So let me ask you, like, Monica, if somebody's after watching this episode with you and they want to work with you, where can they find you?
So my website is monicajackman.ie. I'm on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I have a page, and a business page and a personal page. They can find me on either. And I'm on LinkedIn. And on my website then there's a booking form where they can book directly, or they can ring or email or text for more information or to get in touch with me. So some of the sessions can be booked directly online without speaking to me. If somebody wants to speak to me, they're more than welcome to contact me, to pick up the phone and go from there.
Thank you so much for your time and for the amazing time I had with you for the interview.
Thank you, Pavel. I really enjoyed it, talking to you as well. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking me to do this, and really enjoyed the time here today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Oh my God. Try not to take breaks so you don't have to be doing so much editing. You'll be editing anyway.
Totally fine.
And could you do that to help you to get a little bit higher on the scale? So it's almost... And I forgot the question you asked me. What was the question you asked me that I went to say
good
that?
Question. What did I ask you? Let me see. I did ask you about... It was somewhere about the homework, right?
Oh, yeah. I just said it's 3:15, the 3 o'clock stump. Yeah, the homework. Oh, yeah.
Yes. How are you keeping? Mm-hmm. You good, yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Jesse, maybe I have a few more questions and then you can just slowly wrap up, yeah? And just before I say it, I want to ask you, I hope you don't mind me saying that, you know, I kind of often start a sentence with you being so many years in your business. I hope it doesn't come across as I'm making you sound too old.
No, it's fine.
I think it's amazing that you have almost 30 years of experience.
Yeah. I say that to everyone. It's fine. You know. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I say I'm not doing this a long time. But on my website and on my social media, it says over 30 years of experience. Because I'm actually doing it nearly 40, because I joined St. Bridget's in 1991. It makes it, you know, 90. It makes it. I'm really, you know, when I say over 30 years of experience, I'm not lying about that. But I'm qualified 28 years, so
yeah. I just wanted to check with you because I do have another line here coming up.
It's absolutely fine. As I did see that, you know, and I did say, you know, for those of us who are lucky enough to get to menopause, I saw that recently, and I just said it because it was in my mind. I hope I get a lot more out of life, but you know, we're any of us who get to whatever age we are, you know, we're lucky enough we're privileged to have got to this age. So I mean, I'm lucky to have that much experience. And I don't mind at all, you know.
I just forgot the question.
Okay.
I'm looking into you. I'm like,
no problem.
What is that I wanted to ask? Oh yeah.